Hi there. Welcome to creating a pause and an introduction to mindfulness. My name is Melania Ryan. I am joining you tonight as a mindfulness meditation teacher, as well as a yoga educator and counselor here, here today to just share with you some very basic understandings of the practice of mindfulness. Um, I'm curious, of course, what your experience with mindfulness is. Curious if you have, I don't know, have thoughts or previous experiences. Just curious. I know that to be viewing this recording, you were not able to meet with us in person. We are doing this 4-week course in person, and I hope to offer it really once a quarter for the foreseeable future, just as there is a need in our community, which is in Dillon, Montana, in our community for tools or skills that help us ground, help us be able to navigate through stressful times. So I'm I'm sorry that you weren't able to join us in person, but I am delighted to be joining you tonight via video. So to do this, what we'll do is basically an educational type experience. Of course, I have a PowerPoint. The glory of Zoom is I can share my screen and everything we need is essentially right here on our fingertips. So we'll do that, but also acknowledging that if you missed the first one or the second one, however it will be, that you are more than welcome to join us for for any of the ones that you can. So what else? I think the only other thing that is relevant is that while in person, there is, of course, this vulnerability and this opportunity to share things that are ours, our stories, our personal thoughts and feelings. And we'll talk about this again, probably each week, just reminding each other of our agreed upon space. We met, it was last night that we met for our first time, and when asked what was important for participants to know as far as our space is concerned, what unfolded was safety. It was an understanding that whatever we share about ourselves, between ourselves, that it stays right there in that space. It's super important that each of our participants feel welcome and safe to be their entire self, um, without any sort of fear of judgment or of shared stories. So anyway, if you join us, you'll hear that again. I am going to share my screen, and maybe we'll get this started. While I set that up though, why don't you, if you're not in a comfortable seat, why don't you kind of adjust, get yourself just as comfy as you'd like to be, and we'll actually start by closing our eyes if we feel okay in our space to do so. If not, you might just shift your gaze somewhere out in front of you. You don't really have to look at anything at all, actually, like no focus. Um, and then just soften your face. Let your forehead and your cheeks relax. I often have to raise and lower my eyebrows a couple times just because that's where I seem to hold some tension. You're here viewing our first week of creating a pause, our introduction to mindfulness. And right out of the gate, I would just like to say thank you for carving out time to do this. Lives are busy, whether we've got work or kiddos or animals, who knows what we've got going on. But acknowledging the time you've made to be here. And if it's possible in this being here, I'd invite you to set everything else from your day, set it aside, almost like you could package it up and set it on the shelf, knowing, right, knowing that you're going to come back to it later. But that for right now, you're going to be right here. Maybe you might take a couple of deep breaths. And when you're ready, you'll open your eyes, kind of reorient to this video, to the space that you're in. Will shift us over to our PowerPoint. All right, so to get us going, again, we're here creating a pause. And I would like, I guess, to just offer the first picture as mindful, quite literally on that left-hand side, or mindful. Wondering which of those two you show up here with today. Which of those two you'd like to be showing up here with today. To be honest, I think that, gosh, most of us come to the table mindful with 20 zillion things racing through our head, our to-do list. We've got families, we've got plates that are full, consequently minds that are full. Mindful or mindful? That said, I'd also like to ask your day. What is it that a day in your life looks like? Specifically, I'm wondering what might go well in your day, um, what might be challenging about your day. What do you wish you had less of? And of course, what do you desire more of? By and large, when most of us are asked this question, um, we all say, in essence, the same thing. We wish for less stress, and we, oh my goodness, so desperately desire more joy. Less stress and more joy. Brings us to the table tonight. It brings us to this course, to this practice of mindfulness. And mindfulness, gosh, it's been around for years. I'd say it's growing in terms of evidence-based practice, experientially. Like we're learning that by and large, mindfulness is something that we benefit from on a psychological level, a physical level, a spiritual level, if that's something for us. But mindfulness is a movement that is shaking this world right now. The definition that we're going to use for the 4 weeks ahead is a definition supplied by John Kabat-Zinn, who He's not just a national researcher and author regarding mindfulness, but he's worldwide one of the experts, one of the leading experts into mindfulness meditation. So our definition for the next 4 weeks is mindfulness is us paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding of experience moment by moment. And that is, it's a mouthful. So when I look at this, I like to break it down. I like to take paying attention on purpose. And maybe tonight you consider in your day, are there moments that you have the capacity to pay attention on purpose? Maybe it's work, maybe it's playing with your kiddos, your dogs, whatever it is. Paying attention on purpose in the present moment. And then this term non-judgmentally, this word non-judgmentally, it definitely gets my attention. And I don't know, I'd invite you to consider, like, what in the world does non-judgmentally mean? Of course, when we're doing our 4 weeks, we're doing it via Zoom, but live, and so there's discussion and an opportunity to hear other people's understanding of these words or other people's experiences. And we're missing that here, right? You're listening to this on your own. And I can share mine, I suppose, but it might be something that you decide to ask, I don't know, ask a friend. What does it mean to pay attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally? Of course, the weeks ahead, we're going to dive into this. We're going to dissect this definition, and we'll talk about, each phrase, how to practice it, what it might mean as far as an experience. Our 4 weeks are also going to include a brief review of stress, both from a psychological standpoint and a physical standpoint. And then an opportunity for us to contemplate our own perspective regarding stress. What it is, how it is we think about stress. We are going to have an introduction to mindfulness. And then we're going to be offered all kinds of skills and tools, but not just offered in a way that it's like an intellectual gathering of information, but instead this experiential opportunity where we are literally going to practice the things that we're learning. So I hope this sounds okay to you. I would definitely invite you as we move through our 4 weeks, if you have questions or comments, if there's anything at all that you wish to bring forward, I would definitely love for you to email me. You could call, send a text message. If you'd like, I'm more than open for discussion about how this practice is unfolding for you day to day. All right, so we'll start then by reviewing psychological stress. So Dr. Richard Lazarus, he identifies stress as a particular relationship between a person and the environment. And that relationship is appraised by a person as taxing or exceeding their resources or endangering their well-being. So we look at this definition, and I'm hoping you can see my screen just fine, but you'll see that it's bolded. And the reason for that is appraised. The word there is super, super important to understand. Appraised, what does that mean? Like perceived? It means that my experience, though very similar to yours, might be 180 degrees different from what you've experienced. I think of trauma here, and I think of the way people understand trauma, where you can have an experience that is, I mean, maybe it's a little stressful, right? But it's essentially no big deal. You move through it, you navigate your way, like no biggie. At the end of the day, it probably makes you stronger. I might have that same experience, and for whatever reason, I am not able to navigate that way. For me, it might be like life shattering. For me, it might be overwhelming. And for me, it might in fact be traumatic. And trauma, when we think about this, trauma is decided by the person experiencing that stressful event, right? It's very individualized. The same would be true here with psychological stress. It's the relationship between you and your environment and the way that you perceive that experience. Stress then it certainly isn't limited to our head, right? Like we do a lot of thinking about it and maybe a lot of feeling about it, but it also is experienced in the body. And so as you are sitting here tonight, I'm super curious, like where you feel stress in your body. What is it like for you to experience stress? I can tell you last night that this was probably one of our hottest discussions. All of us experience this different, right? Like one gal talked about pain in her neck, another talked about the belly. I shared with the participants that when I am stressed, my body actually like shakes. Whether that is the picture has like our legs trembling. For me, it can start with like my hands and arms, but it isn't limited to that. It's my head. My head even shakes. So where do you feel stress in your body? So we've got a psychological experience of stress. We've got a physical experience of stress. And when we look even closer, we've got a chemical or hormonal experience of stress. I think that most of us probably have been well versed on the stress response, secreting adrenaline and cortisol, and those being the hormones that are largely responsible for our fight or flight or freeze response. If we look really specifically, we can identify that adrenaline increases our heart rate, it increases our blood pressure and blood flow, while cortisol is the chemical that literally like increases, it gives us that burst of energy and increases or heightens our alertness and our awareness. When we are stressed, it might be that oh my gosh, we hear better, we see better, we are maybe way more in tune to what's going on around us. The other thing that cortisol does is it boosts our immunity, just anticipating that something bad essentially is happening and coming. For most of us, this is the understanding we have in regards to chemicals and hormones. Tonight, what I am happy to share with you is that those aren't the only two chemicals that are released when we have a stress response. The third chemical that is released that we're going to spend just a moment talking about is oxytocin. And oxytocin, if you're familiar with that, I'm guessing you're most familiar with childbirth, actually, when a mama gives birth to a baby and that skin to skin contact upon birth, oxytocin is released. Nursing the baby, oxytocin is released. We're also probably pretty familiar that in relationships, romantic relationships in particular, there is this release of oxytocin. Oxytocin is our bonding and attachment hormone. When our stress response occurs, what this means is that oxytocin released creates in us this natural desire to connect, to find support, to be near or with someone in that time of stress. The other thing that oxytocin does is it works as a natural anti-inflammatory, right? It very specifically targets the heart and it opens up our vessels so that our blood can flow freely and literally helps regenerate and heal the heart from the stress that is endured due to the cortisol and the adrenaline that's flowing through the body. So we've got adrenaline, we've got cortisol, and we've got oxytocin. And I just want to share a little bit about, I guess, our understanding of stress. For years, even I, for years, have been teaching that stress is bad, that while we as animals, right, we're mammals, we are wired to experience a stress response as part of survival. Our wiring allows us to very healthfully experience a stress response for about 20 minutes at a time. In fact, all other mammals in the world, like after 20 minutes of heightened stress or hormonal stress response, after about 20 minutes of it, all animals they do one of three things in order to bring themselves back to a rest and digest state. Those animals, they either eat, sleep, or mate in order to keep themselves down out of their stress response. That said, we and I have taught even mindfulness from the perspective of like, oh my gosh, stress is bad. Like we need to do mindfulness because. And tonight what I'm proposing is instead of an understanding that these things are bad, I'm wondering if it might be an opportunity for us to reframe that and see that even the physical response is our body cueing us, like telling us that, hey, I see stress and I'm preparing, like I'm here, I got you, and I'm going to get you through this. That our bodies are our friends, right? Stress is our friend. And together, these things are going to help us. One of our participants last night reminded me of a video. It's a TED talk that she encountered that, oh my goodness, like changes your world in regard to stress. It's called Making Friends with Stress. And when I send this out, I'll send a link to the TED talk because it is awesome. And it goes into far greater depth as to how oxytocin is released and what it does and how it in particular works as this protection for us in times of stress. So shifting our perspective from this idea that stress is bad, right? And if something's bad, all of us, like we dig our feet in and we we don't want it, or we want less of it, right? When I ask, like, what's a day in your life look like? And you say, well, here it is. And when I ask, what do you want less of and more of? The answer is always like less stress, more joy. We resist the stress. Tonight we're playing with the idea of, rather than resisting, might we see it as, I don't know, as an invitation to acknowledge that our body is here to help us. It's preparing to help us. Curious then, if you choose to change the way that you might think about stress, I guess I'm curious what that would mean for you. What kind of impact might that have on, it might be your day, it might be a moment of your day. What if we could choose to change the way we think about stress? I'll tell you that in our live um, meeting here, talking about this, the participants in one way or another indicated that if they could choose to perceive stress as a friend, um, that it would give them an opportunity or a chance to experiencing something completely different. One gal shared that her tendency is to feel the stress, and her mind like will automatically assume the worst possible case scenario, right? And she'll start going into how she's going to handle the worst possible case scenario. And of course, like, that's what she expects to happen. And she shared that if she could hear the body's cues or the mind's cues, she might be able to pause and to at least consider that things might not be as bad as she anticipates. The consensus then, when we think about this, is it is typically that we have an opportunity to pause instead of an event happening and our response immediately following, or reaction even. We could slow it down. We could have a pause. So speaking of pauses, there's pauses, there's natural pauses all over in our world. Um, one of the most readily available pause to notice happens in our breath. Um, we're going to do both of these, the pause in the breath and the pause in the music. We'll do both of these experientially. And actually, because I'm recording and going to share it, it's not going to let me record the music, so you'll have to do that. But I'll lead you when we get there. Um, the first one we're going to do is a pause in the breath, right? We'll find that pause. So again, if you're not comfy, adjust yourself, get yourself supported in your seat, and either letting your focus just dissipate or choosing to close your eyes. Always that cue to soften your face, relax your eyebrows, your forehead, even your jaw. Even massage the temples a little bit, just letting yourself soften a bit. And as you soften, begin to notice your breath. Notice the coolness of the air as it moves in through your nostrils, the warmth as it moves out. And if your mind is moving, which probably it is, my mind is definitely moving. I'm thinking, right? Thinking about this recording or what I have to do tonight or blah, blah, blah. It's thinking. And I want to slow that thinking down a little bit. And so I'll lengthen my breath, letting the inhale fill you all the way up, and the exhale empty you all the way out. Inhale, fill yourself all the way up. And as you exhale this time, exhale a little longer than you normally would. Almost like you're forcing that last bit of air up and out. You'll inhale, go all the way up, and exhale, pushing out every last little bit of air, followed by an inhale. Maybe you do one more exhale where you're very purposefully releasing all of the air. Your breath then will return to this regular rhythm, but keep paying attention on purpose to the breath. And as you do, I'd invite you to notice that at the top of your breath, like the top of the inhale, there's this pause before your body exhales. At the bottom of your breath, there's a pause, and then your body inhales, pausing at the top and pausing at the bottom. Your breath has natural pauses. Take another couple of breaths. When you're ready, you'll again open your eyes and come back to our space. And then reflecting on, for you, what that pause was like. Was it something that, I don't know, something that was natural? Something that you had to maybe look for? The participants the other night talked about whether it was pleasurable even, or whether it was seemingly stressful. Um, what is your pause like? So another pause that we can find, it's there, right? Is it's called the music, and if you play instruments or sing or whatever, it's not called applause, it's called a rest. Um, and I don't even remember what the symbolism is. No idea. Is it a line? I don't know. But it's the rest in music. And like I said, I can't pull up a song and listen to it together, but I would encourage you right now to like even minimize the screen, pull up on YouTube any song you want. I pulled up Let It Be by the Beatles only because I love it. Um, but listen to it. Listen to it for maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and, and notice. You might have to look for them, right? You might have to find the pauses, but they're there. Finding our pause, our pause in breath, our pause in music. Where else might you find a pause? So, for homework, um, this is this is the material we covered during our first meeting. So one of the four, right? Our homework for this first week is simply us finding the pauses in our life or creating them. Sometimes we have to make the pause, right? An example I shared of what that might look like is I have I have huskies, um, huskies that are always starving and always something to bite. And I was eating a cracker last night, and the husky, the baby husky, she's a puppy, but she's big. I had my cracker like clear up here. I was standing, and she jumped up, and she wanted the cracker, and my natural response is to smack her on the nose, right, and to say no. And there's no thought to it. It's literally like just a habit. It's cause and effect. And right before we started our class last night, this was in my this was in my mind, right? Um, I had the capacity to pause, like instead of just slapping her down, to actually like briefly, super quick contemplate, like, do I want to smack her nose and tell her no? Or how might I choose to correct her otherwise? And I did end up smacking her on the nose and telling her no. Um, but it was that brief moment where instead of just reacting, I had the opportunity to consider what I wanted to do. So that's just an example. What other examples? You, when I think of two, it has to do with dogs. I think I must have a thing for dogs. Walking in the mornings, there's dogs that bark, all the time when you walk by with your dog. And if you pay attention to the noises, it could be the dogs, it could be the birds singing. There will be there will be pauses between barks or chirps. Maybe they're catching their breath. I don't know what they're doing, but they're pausing. So noticing our pauses. Specifically, then our homework is to do this at least once a day, right? And to write it down so that it is something that we're purposely paying attention to. And then of course, you're invited to join us next week in person. Well, it's Zoom, but live, and just share what it is you experienced as far as topics. So I think that is all that I have to offer tonight. Thank you, thank you for taking an hour to be here. I suppose without the discussion, it's not an hour. I don't know how long it is, but I appreciate your time and just your opening of yourself to the practice of mindfulness. So thank you, and I'll see you. I'll see you.